Tonight's Eye on Chicago Now. A look back at a Chicago institution, the place to celebrate proms, anniversaries, birthdays, and more.
Mr. Kelly's was a springboard for young entertainers who later became not just household names, but big stars. An exhibit at Chicago's Newberry Library takes us there. Chicago's Rush Street in the 1950s and 60s. Bustling, busy, full of life. And the place to be? Mr. Kelly's at Bellevue and Rush, a nightclub many young comics and singers called home.
I first came to Chicago when I was 21 years old to sing at Mr. Kelly's.
Kelly's was a hip, kind of happening place, you know? It was just cool.
A lot of out-of-town people would come from all the Midwest, from small towns. They had to be at Mr. Kelly's.
David Marienthal also called Mr. Kelly's home, but for a different reason. His father, George, and uncle, Oscar, created it, growing it into a nationally known hotspot. The first time you walked in here and saw this, what did you think?
It really just took my breath away.
The club's history comes alive at Chicago's Newberry Library in an exhibit called A Night at Mr. Kelly's.
Very glamorous and people dressing up, the whole mystique of going out to a nightclub.
To enjoy the best new performers.
They were just kids. They were happy to have, starving artists. They were happy to have a job, as Barbara Streisand.
What rhymes with Mr. Kelly?
And the great jazz singers, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson. The Smothers Brothers were some of my favorites, Bob Newhart.
I say field because it covers quite an area.
There were so many. The more tame, like Bette Midler, Flip Wilson, Steve Martin, and the more controversial, Dick Gregory, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, even Lenny Bruce. That's his bar tab.
Mr. Kelly's was always had a reputation for being cutting edge.
Enter a duo prominently featured on these walls, Tim and Tom. That's Tim Reed and Tom Dreesen, an unusual combo in the racially charged 1960s.
They were with each other.
Exhibit curator Allison Hinderleiter says Mr. Kelly's was a snapshot of America.
The civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, the women's liberation movement, it all can be told in the story of the nightclub.
They welcomed African American patrons as well as staff and entertainers.
In fact, the Ebony Travel Guide you see here listed Mr. Kelly's and London House, also owned by the Marienthals, as the only two nightclubs between LA and New York where black patrons could feel safe and welcome.
Here is Billie Holiday.
But there was much more to Mr. Kelly's than great entertainment. There was food. And a cup of French onion soup will run you 75 cents.
It is pretty amazing that, a lobster tail could be $10.95.
Check out this old-time menu. And remember ashtrays? They also tell the story. And the exhibit offers visitors a chance to tell their stories.
We're asking people to either scan a QR code, or they can just write down who they saw on a cocktail napkin, post it on our wall.
I could always find someone I knew at Mr. Kelly's bar.
Ken Denberg told us some of his memories.
I saw Newhart, and I saw, what's his name, the guy who was arrested, Lenny Bruce.
Lenny Bruce, yeah.
Never understood a word he said, but I saw him.
What was it that made Mr. Kelly so special, do you think?
Everybody wanted to see the new talent.
Take my hometown, Chicago.
And for David Marienthal, seeing all of this is very emotional.
I was seeing this picture of my father in front of his wall of stars that wrote him personal notes thanking him. It has given me an opportunity to get to know my father again 50 years later.
Mr. Kelly's closed in 1975, but you can savor all that was Mr. Kelly's in the Newberry exhibit. A Night at Mr. Kelly's. It runs through July 20th. To learn more, you can log on to our website at cbschicago.com. It was the place to be, and the place that's there now is pretty famous too. Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse.
Right.
So it was the place to go out, get dressed up
and seeing all those icons.
So many
comedy
of them,
and music is pretty incredible.
And before they were big names.
Yeah.